sent their message that they sent to their younger self, that shamed self. And so this person says, what I would tell me is this: you had the weight of the world on your shoulders for so long. You did get raped. You were neglected by your mom and forgotten by your dad. They will work so hard to change that. They will be a part of your life, and those men who touched you, they don't have control of you anymore. You can scream it from a mountaintop. You don't have to lie anymore. You can be honest, and you can love. I love you. Adult me loves the kid me unconditionally. A question came in. Says here, I've had too many men in my life use and abuse me, and that's one of the reasons I used to numb. Now that I'm sober, I'm feeling all of that hurt and pain again, and it feels 1,000,000 times worse. And it's so uncomfortable, and it would be so much easier to numb out. But I don't want to do that again. But I can't feel this pain and let them control me anymore. Please help. It ruins relationships and intimacy. And I've been raped as well.
So there's a couple really good things in there. One, we can't selectively numb whenever we use. So whenever we numb out, we numb it all. So our intention is to numb these negative emotions and leave the positive ones intact. Whenever we're numbing out, that's actually not an option. We either numb our entire state or we don't. So it's just like the same like taking ibuprofen. It just hits your whole body. You just notice that the headache's gone, but it's in your whole system. And so you can't say, oh, ibuprofen, only go to the headache part and leave the rest of my body alone. And so what happens is our nervous system is wired to respond to situations, to cue, to understand, is this safe, not safe, hold, and do all of that. And as we use, right, or isolate or do different things, that window that we have to hold all of that information actually shrinks. So it actually, as we numb out, it gets smaller. And so it's a really common experience for people that when they stop numbing out, the emotions that are this big feel this big because they've been living in an emotional window this big. So the beauty is as we pull our two chairs together and work recovery, our window of tolerance grows. And you can see this looking at little kids, right? I brought up my 5-year-old earlier. I can look at him and be like, no. And because his emotional window of tolerance is small, he can be like, ah! Right? I can say, we'll go get a Pokemon card booster pack. Woo! And it's literally Christmas Day and we are on top of the world, right? Because his window of tolerance is smaller, right? A small child might get bumped and have a big emotional reaction to that. And it's like, well, what happened? I got pushed, right? Where if we were all walking out tonight and someone accidentally bumped into you, you probably would not have the giant emotional fit that my 5-year-old would have. However, had you experienced a lot of physical abuse and then had to numb out or hadn't yet been able to process it, walking out and getting bumped might be a very big deal to you. And maybe a huge emotional experience because you haven't been able yet to hold it and process it in your window. So what I would tell the person submitting this question is that emotion has a shelf life. If I quit running from it, right, if I can sit with it, it passes. Grief passes, anger passes, sadness passes. And then we can hold it in our window and it's all right. We can deal with it without having a big reaction. And the other thing I would say about intimacy and relationships, if I'm continuing to see a pattern of it going wrong, so there's a saying, if everywhere I touch on my body hurts, my fingers must be broken. Right? And so it doesn't mean that there's something bad about you, inherently bad about you. The question is, a way I'm showing up relationships is not well. My boundaries are not in place. There's not a way for me to do this well. I keep having a repeated experience. And my invitation always would be slow down until you can figure some of that out. Instead of jumping off the diving board and hoping you remember how to swim this time, I would say stay in the shallow end of the pool. And anytime I tell myself, totally, I'm just going to kind of put my feet in on the edge. and then I find myself doing this and jumping in the pool, that just tells me that there's something going on for me. So just be curious about that. What's pulling you in there? And my guess is it's some pain that just hasn't been dealt with yet. Right? And human attachment, I will choose a poor relationship over no relationship. I would choose abuse, demeaning, a one down position before I would choose no connection at all. It's not an always, it's a majority of the time. We are wired to connect as human beings. And so that's how we can kind of get in some of that self-betrayal with relationships, because I have to connect, I want to stay connected, I want to have relationships, it seems so important, and it is. However, I want to just slow relationships down until I know I can show up, staying in my window of tolerance. So I can name, that's not safe, you and I are taking a step back, or hey, you're not telling me, you're showing me. This relationship can take a step forward. And whether that's a romantic relationship or a friendship or a family relationship, the rules would all still apply.
That's it on the questions.
Any other questions anyone wants to ask? You can totally raise your hand or just talk and ask you.
Getting back to the relationships that I'm developing, before it was a transactional type of thing. You know, if I'm going to give you some of me, I better be getting some of you. But now, I can look more as I can have a healthy relationship with people, especially women, because I was really bad at objectifying. And once I started curbing those habits, I noticed that women can be friends, you know. So I think dealing with a lot of that stuff inside of me where I was projecting, you're going to tell me how good I am. You're going to tell me how well I feel. And when I start facing that inwards is where I started getting a lot of growth and started making, you know, real healthy relationships with men and women. So I was developing. But getting past all that projecting, I was really good at that. You know, being in prison for like 22 years, the whole bumping thing, you know, that was a real thing in prison. You know, if you get into my bubble and you bump me, that's squaring off things just like the PBL, you know, you say the PBL words. So getting out of that habit was really hard for me too. Going into a store could have triggered something like that.
Yeah.
And so getting my boundaries set with my values is what is helping me to develop all these positive relationships. I just wanted to share just what I've been learning, and that exercise you did, Hazel does a lot of the same thing, and I used to just bucket. I mean, am I saying the right thing, you know? But then when you just let your heart, they say put your hand on your heart and let your heart talk, and it really helps, because, you know, it's confusing to me with the scarves, because that's one of Hazel's big tools, man. You know, it made me really, really uncomfortable at first, because I didn't know what to say.
Sure. And on them, there's a lot of different modalities and different ways to get in touch with trauma and heal. So I would never tell you there is the way. There are different ways and different ways that work with different.
Well, that works. I'll tell you what. Because it makes it work, you know what I mean?
Sure.
But I appreciate the exercise.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
I wanted to see what you think about this. I found in all of the things that I've learned in rehab that, I found that of all the things I've learned in rehab, the very first line of the Serenity Prayer, and the key word in that line is accept. The serenity comes, the courage comes, all the other things in the prayer come with accepting. You have to accept yourself, and you have to accept the mistakes as well as the successes and all the things you've done to yourself or with yourself, inside yourself, to deal with that acceptance of what you've been, where you've gone, who you've hurt, what you've done. What do you think about that?
What do you think, James?
You start.
I mean, the name of our practice is literally accepted. So, feel you on that. And yeah, you're correct. I think a misunderstanding is acceptance can often be interpreted as boundaryless. So my mom, who, neglected me and had an affair when I was a kid and all this stuff or whatever, is 0 to 100. So my mom can't like make dinner. It's either Thanksgiving dinner or you don't get fed. Right? It's like one or the other, right? And so acceptance does not mean that I let my mom do whatever she wants in my life, because I have accepted that I don't control her. And that so often when people say, I accept everything that's happening. No, I accept the fact that this happened to me or that happened. So I can accept the fact that sexual abuse happened to me. I don't ever have to be in the room with that person. I don't have to name anything. And so that to me is where that can get misconstrued, where people get is acceptance is a boundarylessness, and it's not.
In that line, it's accept the things I cannot change, and the past cannot be changed, no matter how much you dwell, how hurt you were by it, the shame you carry, whatever, all those things. That's the one thing that I'm taking away more than anything else, is there's some things that I've done in my past that I had a really hard time living with.
Right.
I've learned to accept that.
Yeah. Well, and what I would say is most of the time when we meet people, they're trying to change their story. Like, I want to come in here and I want to talk about this, and then I want it to be done and stop affecting me and never ever talk about it again. And that's just inherent with shame. There's a lack of acceptance. And so what I would tell you today, I actually don't regret my path. I'm sad that I hurt me, and I'm sad that I hurt other people. I regret the pain that I caused. If I had a life do-over, I don't know that I actually would do it different. Because I wouldn't be worth my salt or half of what I'm doing in my life if I hadn't walked with my own darkness.
But that's
And
acceptance, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so what we do is, with what I would tell you is, it's not abandoning your story or forgetting your story. It's accepting it and being able to be there. And I'll just give you the Brene Brown quote: shame, the less you talk about it, the more you have. So if you can't talk about that thing that happened ever, and you can't name it even in a room with a therapist or just someone close and who's in support with you, my guess is that there's emotional healing still available there to you. Because when you've talked about it, so I named all the prostitution, me and my wife don't talk about it. I did it before we were married and while we were married. We don't talk about it anymore. Not because we're ashamed and we're hiding it. We've just talked about it. It's done. And sometimes it will come up. Well, it came up before, hey, could we do a staycation at this hotel? Nope. Because that's a place that I acted out. Ooh, that hurt. That hurts. Is there anything you need from me? And literally 10 minutes later, we're moving on, planning the staycation, and it's done. Because we've already talked about it. We've pulled the shame out of that part of our story and had the acceptance.
So to move on, part of acceptance, so another question I got was, how do you know when you're doing your best? Right? So for me, I always put that in a perspective of my best is what I can give today and how much awareness I have even around myself and my capacity today, and developing that self-awareness. So for example, today, showing up on a scale of 1 to 10, I might only be able to give at an 8 today. And if I give it an 8 today, I gave my best. Just because tomorrow I could give it a 10, or yesterday I could, but today I can't, doesn't mean that today I didn't give my best. And for me, that's part of the acceptance, accepting that where I'm at in my journey, from even minute to minute or day by day, accepting that I want to live in alignment with my values of doing the best I can today, right? And if that best, I can guarantee you when I'm sick, my best is going to be like at a 3 or a 2 because I'm sick. And so the best might be to take the phone call, and that's about it. Whereas on the next day, it's not. And so best is going to be in alignment with where I'm at with my values. And can I accept that I can't always show up at a 10? Because guess what? I'm human. I'm not a robot. I can't output the same thing all the time every day, right? And so making sure that I'm just staying in awareness, what can I do to give my best today versus another day? You got anything else on that?
Yeah. So one, and this is from one of our mentors. This is actually called the Shame Sculpt. It's by Mark Pimsler. It's actually, he's the one who invented it. So credit where credit's due. So this is a quote: is the greatest mistake you can make in the process of learning is thinking that you should be somewhere other than where you are. In doing so, you keep yourself from learning, ensuring that your fears become a reality. I should be further. I should be. Anything that follows should is shame.
That happens a lot in recovery, though.
Oh, yeah, for
You
sure.
look at different people and say, why am I not in that stage they're at? I've been at just as long.
And again, when we talked about empathy, you're not in their body and not in their story, right? One of you might be sitting here being like, wow, I'm doing really crappy. And however you see your higher power, your distance, you're actually like on mile 10, and I might be freaking on mile 2, but just due to circumstance and different things, it looks like I'm on mile 11, and actually you're further in the race than I am. You actually have put in more work. So comparison is always going to put us in a place of shame. And we met a lady once who was the spouse of someone in recovery. And she said to us, we have a saying now in our home that your worth is set. Your worth is set, and everything else is just an experience.
Is that on the basis that your worth never changes?
Yeah,
Your worth never changes.
Your
It's
worth
set.
never changes. So we work with people in relapse, and you had a relapse, right? I always just go to, I'm curious why that happened. I wonder what's going on with you. And you have an infinite amount of choices you can make now at this point. Which choice seems like the best idea to you to help you deal with your pain? Recovery is often short-term pain, long-term gain, right? Where acting out is typically short-term gain, long-term pain, right? Reverse. Yeah. You had a hand in.
Yeah, the way that you explain that just now with the should, like, I feel like that's my huge issue for me, for sure. Like, I feel like I didn't really realize, like, how much I really say that to myself during the day. You know what I mean? Like, I've been in really good spots in my recovery before. I've been in really, like, you know, difficult spots where I'm struggling. Like, I've got, like, cancer that's killing, you know, people in my family right now. Like, it's killed, like, a couple people, and, like, I feel like that's, you know what I mean, that's, like, affected me like crazy, and I feel like, I've got my own stuff that's affecting me, and I feel like, I'm just, like, have a lot of self-judgment, you know what I mean, with not, like, the way that I'm more just, like, you know, I feel like I should be at this level right now, and I feel like I should be physically at this level, and I feel like I should be emotionally, you know what I mean, but, like, Shay, you know what I mean, as my life coach, and he explained to me the other day, like, he did a whole thing with me on that for an hour and a half, you know what I mean, like, to just let that go, and I'm struggling with it now, like, really bad. So, like, I relate to that, like, the way that you explained that just, like, made so much sense to me, man. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I need to go back to something you said, because you say it has a shelf life. But it's really hard. When when the only men in my life that have not hurt me the way that most men have are my dad and my boys. And I know it's not fair to all men, because shouldn't, I can't think of the right word, look at like the past and compare them. But every relationship and everything I've been in ends up the same. So it's very hard for me to not, doesn't make any sense.
Tons of sense.
Yeah. The way you were treated by those men was wrong. I mean, you didn't deserve it. And yeah, it'll hurt, and it hurts for a long time to look at or to deal with. But it doesn't define who you are.
I try not to let it.
Yeah. But it's hard. But your worth is set. You are valuable no matter what's happened to you. And it's not right what happened to you in any way. I just want to name that.
I don't know how to look past it all.
I don't know that you should.
Yeah.
Today, right now. Everest isn't climbed in a day. And that's not me giving you the like day at a time speech. That's me saying like, there are times of safety and relationship when that opportunity then becomes available. And I've had times even in my therapeutic process that I was like, it is not safe enough in this room to do that. And then I've had other times where the stars aligned and the moment came and I felt my anxiety and fear and I'm like, I think it's time. I think it's time to take this one off the shelf. And so what I would tell you is believe you. Believe your story. If it's not safe, it's not safe. Particularly when people tell you it's safe, that's typically a sign it's not. No, I'm safe. I would ask some questions around that, right? Because I'd say, why don't you just show me you're safe instead of trying to convince me of it, right? And so what I would say is honor your own story. If it's not time, it's not time. One of the our director at Accepted has a lot of trauma in her history. And there are things that come up and we name it, right? So when we go somewhere new, she will go through the house. The even place where we do our workshops that's like super safe, all that, when we show up, we literally open every door and cabinet and go through the house. Do I think that will get off the shelf for her someday? I really do. Is it off the shelf today? It's not. So what we do is we honor it. And we go through the house and we open every cupboard. Make sure no one's hiding there. Because we honor where she is right now. Because that's where she is in her learning. And so it's okay to be where you are in your healing journey. You don't need to speed it up. It's okay.
It's just hard. I hate being scared.
And as a scared little boy who's been scared for a long time, I hate being scared too. And I'm still scared all the time. And have it triggered all the time. And for me, as I've had the courage to do healing work, I get scared a lot less. But it's real. Thank you.
Liz, when you were first sharing that, I had an instant feeling of shame come over me because of just men in general and the way.
So if you're okay, I'm going to let us leave her alone.
Okay, well, I'm okay.
Let's see. So we got two questions here. One, how do you break the cycle of pornography? And Well, should we start there? Breaking the cycle of pornography, it's breaking any other addictive behavior, right? So the first thing is, what's step one? Yeah. Get honest about it, right? Get honest with yourself, right? So that part of that is turning around and actually looking at what's going on, right? So what is pornography trying to fix for you, right? Pornography isn't the problem, it's the solution, right? Alcohol isn't the problem, it's the solution. What's it trying to solve? It's trying to solve some pain, right? And so it's like any other just like substances. Get honest with it and start taking the steps to get clean and sober from that. It follows the same addiction cycle, just like any other addiction cycle. So it's not, like a special or unique brokenness. There's some nuances, to it. Because I actually, the alcohol, I can go get alcohol and that's way down the street, but I carry my penis with me and my eyes with me all the time, right? So it's a little different, right? But the principles are the same, right?
Yeah, the only one I'd say that is sometimes different with some, because you have substance addiction and behavioral addiction. Results are the same: nervous system, brain chemistry. There's, if you want to look up the Amen Clinic, they've done a bunch of brain scans of people on cocaine and people on porn, and people, right? So addiction's addiction. But I do hope that you have healthy sexuality in your life. Like I do hope that happens for everyone. But probably none of us need to be alcoholics. We probably can let that one go, right? And so that is the one that's a little bit hard, is with some substance or like gambling, for example, right? I can just turn that off, right?
Yep.
But if I have porn or disordered eating or something like that, I just can't be like, well, great, I'll just never eat again, right? Or I might no, like you are gonna need to eat to live, and there's a healthy way to do that. There is a healthy way to do sexuality. So that does make it a little bit harder to navigate, particularly in early stages of finding out what's healthy sexuality versus unhealthy sexuality. So sometimes with certain addictions, particularly behavioral ones, that can be a little bit hard, how to get back to a healthy behavior versus an unhealthy behavior.
Yeah. This is a great one. How do you find value in yourself? Love that one. For me, that was a hard-fought journey. As I started to look back at shame and start to do this work right here, when I recognized that I had a whole lot of contempt and hatred for my past and for my younger selves, and for myself. So there was a whole lot of not value there. And for me, a lot of that journey came from understanding what shame looked like, sounded like, felt like in my body on a daily basis. Started to recognize what the shoulds sounded like in my head and how that translated into shame, right? What the name calling in that negative self-talk sounded like, and getting familiar with that and practicing that over and over again, of peeling those layers off to get to the truth and the value for me. That's what took that journey for me. Also, part of why I started the work with Warrior Heart and Heart of a Woman was because I found that I needed connection with my higher power. And because I hated me so much, I went to this and I found that, well, if my higher power could accept me for who I was, maybe then I can just have a glimmer of hope that maybe I can too. And so for me, I had to start to believe that maybe my higher power accepted me first. This was just my path, right? That if my higher power could, then I could. And that started me on that journey then of allowing a higher power to love and accept me. Then that started me on a path of me starting to love and accept me. And a lot of it came out of, a more complex just version of this type of shame work over and over and over again. And it helped me get in touch with purpose and meaning in my life. It helped me get in touch with who I wanted to be. It got me in touch with my values and what I actually did value, what values were mine, and what I wanted to put into the world and what I wanted to accept.
A side note I'll name, because Shane works this way, and our higher power is a good example. Done a lot of work with people around church hurt, God wounds, a lot of stuff like that. And I hesitate to say ever, because almost all of the disconnection people have from their higher power was given to them in shame. It was someone else telling them that your higher power is disappointed in you, mad at you, demands perfection from you. It is rare that I've had someone walk into nature and be like, I was there, and my higher power, however you see that, was there, and they just told me I wasn't good enough. I just have never had that experience working with people. And so getting curious about where that messaging came in. And the one for me, right, so speaking from the I, so unashamed, unafraid actually came from a quote of the Lecrae song where he says, there's plenty of people like me, all outsiders like me, all unashamed and all unafraid to live out what they're supposed to be. So what did it for me was hearing other people's stories, which actually what we do is we have a podcast where we share stories. People come on and share stories. There we focus on stories of sexual addiction, but a lot of people have substance abuse as well in their story, right? It comes in. And so for me, it was hearing other people's story that I'm like, I'm not the only person who's done this. I'm not the only person who's done the thing, said screw this, totally gone against my values. And when I started to see that I was not alone in that, that started to help me connect. And I would say I have not met a single person who I would say goes from recovery to recovered, who does not have a community around them that can see the real them past the shame. And I'll have that conversation with people still all the time. James is the number one person in my community. And we'll have an experience and I'm like, gosh, James, am I a safe man? Because my shame just came up in this experience that just happened. Am I arrogant? Am I this? Am I that? Right? And to have those people who know you that can remind you back, no, this is the real you, and you trust them to tell you the truth. Because you don't need just people just gassing you. It's just, you know it's fake and it's not. People who really know you and can say, no, you are beautiful. No, you actually are smart. I'm sorry that that person made you feel dumb. It's the shame, just like James was trying to put it on me, right? And so I would start with, from a distance, can you find other people's stories? And even if they're not the exact same, just relatable. Be like, wow, someone actually has gotten off this stuff. Like there's a person who's done it. Huh. For me, that was what started to help grow that self-love of, well, gosh, if they can do it. At the first story I heard, I was like, he is so normal, and his wife is so normal. They're like average Joes. Like nothing special about them. I'm like, well, if they could do it, I could do it. So that's where I found the help initially.
At what point or age do you share with your kids your past with pornography and other things?
What I would say is all information age appropriate. So I can share any of the big things with a 4 or 5 year old. Why don't we go over to grandma's house anymore? I wouldn't say to a 5 year old, because grandpa's a child molester. And do you know what being molested means? Let me give you a quick sex ed right now in this shame. No, I would just say it's not safe over there anymore. And so even to my 8-year-old, I can say, yeah, you know how sometimes you're unkind? Yeah, so I've done some really big, really unkind things to mom and others that I need to make repair for and say sorry. What repair is, my 8-year-old daughter, is like fixing what you broke, right? And when she's 16 or 17, I can change that narrative, right? And give some more as she understands. And then when she's 25 or 20 or whatever, depending on where she is developmentally, no, I'll just tell her the whole story. She's not dumb. I'll be like, yeah, I was stealing money from the family business and doing a bunch of prostitution and porn was totally a thing. And I saw it when I was a little kid like everyone else and blah, blah, blah. And so it's not about trying to don't leave the truth. Just you can say it age appropriately. What happened? That person hurt me. They hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
That's how I could talk about a rapist or someone who's hurt.
So this goes along great with the truth light switch the scale. So since both of you are open to share people, when a stranger asks you, how are you, do you respond honestly or with the normal good?
Yeah, so what I would tell you is dishonesty is like a light switch. right? And so dishonesty, I've already hit the lights in this room. It's like, what's your name? And I'm like, Bill, right? So dishonesty, whether it's omission or commission, I have to make a choice to leave the true story, right? And sometimes I don't always do that for the wrong motive. Sometimes I'm like, ooh, I don't want them to feel bad that they didn't get invited to the party last night and I didn't know that they weren't invited. It feels easier to lie and save their feelings, right? So sometimes it's not always out of a bad motive. But what I would tell you is, like, if we use the length of this stage, honesty is a spectrum, right? So my name's Steven. Am I being honest with you?
Yes.
Yes, there it is, man. Okay. My name is Steven Shields. Am I being honest with you?
Yes.
My name is Steven Weston Shields. Am I being honest with you? See, that's where the questions start to come in, right? I am being honest with you, right? So I have a 5-year-old who calls me DAD because he's learned how to spell. So I often am called DAD, particularly when I'm not listening. Dad, DAD, right? So am I being honest with you about my name? Yeah. My wife calls me Rapper Boy because I met her when I was freestyle rapping at the Gateway. There was no City Creek. It was still cool. Am I being honest with you? That's a true story, actually. Right? And so depending on who you are, so I feel like God, as I've moved in my life, has given me a new name to name my call. My truth is, this is not a safe enough or an intimate enough room for me to share that name with you. So where we're going to stop on the honesty spectrum is here. But I didn't turn the lights off. I didn't lie to you or deceive you or omit information. I just stated my truth. And where the most honest place here can be is I don't know. So when we earlier did the cards, some of you actually didn't know. You weren't trying to not participate or be deceptive. You literally did not know. I'm not sure which emotion is the truest for me right now. That's an honest answer. That's real. I don't know. And the other honest answer might be, I'm not going to tell you. Hey, well, what about this? Ooh, we're coming back here. I'm not going to tell you.
Can I say something a little more? For me, if you feel comfortable, even a little more is I'm not comfortable telling you right now.
For sure. Yeah. Because this is all just boundary work. I don't know all of you. I don't know where you're at with God on the journey and all that. We ain't that intimate. I ain't sharing that with you. Love you, care about you. That's too much. And if you were to press me and ask me for that, if you were to walk up to me after and be like, no, but bro, tell me that. All you told me is that you're not safe. Why do you need that information from me? That doesn't feel like a clear motive. That doesn't feel connected. Because if it was, and I needed to be that honest with you, we would be in a moment of emotional intimacy, and the safety would be there. You wouldn't have to say, no, bud, I'm safe. I'm on God. Tell me what that name. You wouldn't have to say all that. That just means you're not safe. Right? And so, yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can say that. That's the way I would say that. Hey, I'm not going to share with you at this time. I had this earlier with my wife today. Somebody came up, and she heard a voice on my phone. She's like, oh, I have anxiety about that. And I was like, I don't want to manage your anxiety in this situation. Are you offended if the honesty stops here? I promise you, no one's getting sued. Everything's good. This will all be fine. And I gave her no more information because it wasn't safe for me. But I didn't lie to her, right? And turn the lights off and go, oh, I don't know, or turn the story. So I don't know it can be safe. And if someone's pressing you on that, well, they've shown you who they are. Yeah.
And as Maya Angelou says, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Okay. So we got 5 minutes left. That was the last question.
I'll throw something out there. I was just thinking as we've been talking, just relating this to some things that hit home for me. So, in my addiction, I used to always call this thing I would do the walk of shame, right? And when I'd end up out there and I felt like my worthlessness was on display, right? The whole world to see, right? My worthlessness. And it's been really, it's been kind of, I've gotten to this place right now where I feel like You know, I'm grateful for a lot of that stuff because of the lessons that I learned through that. And it really, it's helped me pinpoint, especially with a therapist, what, where was the problem? And it's the belief system. Did everyone really look at me and say, oh, look at that worthless guy? Some of them might have, but really it's not even the point. It was how I was feeling. And I think everyone in here can relate profoundly to that feeling of shame and feeling like the whole world is looking at you like you're worthless. And I love that your worth is set that you were talking about. And I've been doing some inner child work with my therapist because I've been able to easily identify, because of the hard things I've been through, it's helped me to easily identify that the problem was in my belief system. And where did that start? Where did that come from?
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of I find it interesting. I've called that the walk of shame for forever, way before I really even understood. But the feeling was so real, and that feeling of shame is so familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. No, thanks for sharing. And that's the empathy, right? When we share from the I, that's how we can connect with others. And so to wrap up, I'll just name, so Unashamed, Unafraid. So what we do is we create scholarships for people in recovery. So like we send people to the retreats that James named. We send people to that, to therapy workshops, to therapy, online programs. We just did a bunch of tickets to a like positive rap concert. So all the messaging was like positive. So we do a lot of kind of different things. And so what I'll tell you is we have a team of 11 volunteers. Not a one gets paid, including me and James. And so we pay for the website, the emails, the podcast, the stuff to run it. Outside of that, everything goes there. What I want to encourage you more, instead of donating to our cause, which is super kind of you if you do that, I actually want to encourage you more to apply for a scholarship. I talk to so many people that I'm like, why don't you apply for a scholarship? And they're like, oh, there's probably someone who really needs that. That's the shame talking. You are worthy of it. And so I just want you to know that to us and where you can find us. If you have additional questions that didn't get answered, you're welcome to send us an email and pop us a quick question. We're happy to get back to you. And and I'll let James finish. What I just want to tell all of you is your worth is set. And this is all just an experience. And if the entire world was willing to be as honest as you are in this room of working to change their life, we would live in a dramatically different world. This actually is a room full of 1%ers. Statistically, the fact that you are working recovery at all makes you a Michael Jordan of the recovery game. Truly, it does. To be knocked down and get up again, to even just show up here tonight, I want you to know, like, I'm very humbled. We're humbled to be here. We honor the journey that you're on. Like, you truly are courageous, unique, and leading the charge of the change that we need to see in this world. I mean that sincerely. So thank you for allowing me to be here with you.
Yeah. And I just want to say that there is hope in this journey. I know the grit that it took for me to get up over and over and over and over again, to come to the meetings, to come to these things, to go to therapy, to turn around and face the fear, to face the shame that I felt about myself, to face those difficult emotions and actually let myself feel them and share them. And I just want you to know that as you continue to lean into that hope is real, that change is real, and that you don't have to do this for the rest of your life. That change is possible. And, you know, from Steve and I and our folks at Accepted and Unashamed, we love you. Like, that might sound weird, like, you don't know me, but I promise we love you. We love this community. And the reason we do what we do is because we love you. Addicts are my favorite people because they're so real. They finally face the truth. They stop doing the pose and they come who they are and share their real hearts with us. And that is true recovery. Continue to be real, and your life will change. And it will change the lives of all of those around you. You will shine a light that other people will want to follow because you had the courage to say it. Thank you.
So I actually want to give a hand to you guys for being here and for working recovery.
Absolutely.
So let's give you a hand. Let's do that.